And we're live.
We're live.
We're live. We'll give everybody a few moments to log in. Let's go. Welcome everybody to our sit-down fireside chat with Stephen Gordon, CEO of Genesis Bank. Genesis is one of our new partners with the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So we're very excited to sit down with Stephen and get some feedback on what's going on at Genesis and what his future plans are for Genesis. Just a brief announcement about what the Chamber is and who we are. We've been around for 35 years. This is our 35th anniversary. We're very excited about celebrating that this year and even next year, given COVID. It's been a little challenging celebrating the 35 years, but we're going to continue to do that and bring the resources we need to do that we've been doing for the last 35 years to Hispanic community and the community at large. Actually, we collaborate with a lot of different organizations throughout the county, and we enjoy doing that as well. We also are a proud host of a small business development center. We're one of only 4 Hispanic chambers in the country to do so, and we provide no-cost service to our clients in the community. So a business who might want to start up, who might want to grow, or might want to just get funding. We also are the proud host of the Finance Center. So we're working with banks like Genesis and others to help you bring financing to yourself and to your business and help that get started. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce Stephen Gordon. Stephen has been a successful founder and operator of multiple banks, and he started Genesis Bank here recently. And we're going to sit down and talk to him about, my first question is going to be, since you were already a successful founder of a couple banks, why did you decide to found Genesis Bank?
First, I want to say thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.
It's truly an honor. And, our partnership, our relationship that we have, while it's new and young, I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to have a real impact in our Hispanic community here in Southern California, and specifically here in Orange County. So why am I doing this again? My wife asks me that question quite often. You're correct. I've launched a number of banks, built a number of banks here, headquartered in Orange County, and doing business up and down the whole West Coast and across California, and specifically within Southern California. We've always had a tremendous impact and made a big difference. But this time around, I think there's even more passion and a real mission behind what we're doing. And it goes well beyond just opportunity to start another bank, launch another bank. The previous bank that we built was Opus Bank, and that grew from an idea, just an entrepreneurial idea on a piece of paper, right, to 50 banking locations up and down the whole West Coast and over $8 billion in total assets. And it became so attractive that another bank came in and coveted the institution, wanted to buy the institution, and acquired Opus. That the close of the acquisition, the completion was in June of this past year. So right in the midst of COVID. Prior to that, the whole world had changed.
Right.
There was a social change that occurred, an economic change that occurred right in the midst of COVID, when COVID forced the closing down, the going home of businesses. And the economy was basically, in a sense, shut down. So there was a need for a new bank to emerge, a bank to really make a difference, to have an impact in our communities. And I was feeling the pain inside of all of our clients and those in the business community, the small business community, mid-sized business community, when COVID hit, and all of a sudden they're trying to figure out how to exist, how to function, how to navigate their own bank, how to navigate the SBA, how to navigate the PPP financing programs, and that whole bureaucracy and confusion that exists generally inside the banking system was leaving people behind.
Right.
And it was very frustrating for me to find that, that large corporations, large companies, even the Los Angeles Lakers got 10 million of PPP funds before they realized maybe they should not have, and they returned it. Right? But small businesses that are the fabric of our communities, this pillars of strength of our economy, were left behind, sitting on, you can imagine from your banking days from many years ago, that application file was sitting on the back of a banker's desk, not getting the attention that it truly deserved. So I felt very strongly that we needed to launch a bank that was really focused on small to mid-sized businesses, those who are entrepreneurial, those have a passion to grow and expand their businesses and execute on their dreams and vision. And that's what we did in launching Genesis. So timing, I think, was.
I agree. I mean, it's like, I don't think people realize how many thousands of banks we lost after the last crisis in 2008 and what that does to the community. And, as far as resources and other banking opportunities and financial opportunities for our small businesses, like you said.
You and I go back decades in the banking universe. And I remember when there were 15,000 banks in the late 80s, early 90s. Today, there are fewer than 5,000 banks in the US, some of that through M&A activity and consolidation. Some of the reduction is through bank failures. Some of it was crises that hit, economic cycles that seem to hit every 10 years or so. And that ends up reducing generally the number of banks who may have been successful, but may have been going a little bit, stretching a little too far pre-crisis. And out of the less than 5,000 banks that exist today, we're one of only 143 that are actually minority depository institutions. And of the 143, there are only 2 of us that are actually diverse, multiracial minority depository institutions in the country.
Why was that important to you, becoming an MDI?
So when we talked about just a moment ago about businesses being left behind, it seemed that a few things were happening. One, many of those businesses were actually minority-owned businesses, and minority defined by the FDIC and the OCC and the Fed is African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, and Native American Indian. And when you consider our market, or the target market that we are serving, it's Southern California, but specifically Orange County, LA County, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. And if you look at the demographics, the composition, the population composition of those 4 counties, they range anywhere between 60% and 75% minority. So from our perspective, I really thought it was hypocritical of the banking system to say that they want to bank our communities, yet the board of directors, the senior executive management team, the management team, and through the organizations and within the banking world generally is not diverse. It lacks the diversity and it's not reflective of our communities. So I felt it was very important that if we are going to truly be committed to community, that we must be truly committed, put our money where our mouth is, and make sure that our board composition is majority minority. So 4 out of 7 board members are minority representation, and highly skilled and extremely qualified with relevant experience, around governance and risk management and banking and finance, accounting, et cetera, and highly connected into community and are representative of that demographic mix of community. And then that filters right on through the senior executive management team all the way through the company.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, people don't realize how diverse Orange County is. Exactly right. We have over 35% Hispanic population here in Orange County. K through 12, though, is over 50%. And so you see the growth pattern that's still existing here. And, how do companies, banks and other companies go to the market with the Hispanic market? Because at the end of the day, they're going to be your consumers, they're going to be your employees, they're going to be just people that you're going to, be your COIs or centers of influence and, your community leaders. So how do I reach out to that community? And I applaud you for doing that, thinking of that ahead of time before you even started the bank and all that. So,
but it's kind of ironic, if you think about it, you'll remember, bankers always want to bank entrepreneurs.
right.
They always think of banking entrepreneurs, yet they've never generally done anything entrepreneurial in their entire
Right.
lives, right? And here it's very different. We are truly entrepreneurs with banking backgrounds where we put our own money into launching a bank, our own capital. But how does one say that they're going to bank the community, that they're going to bank the minority community that's now the majority of our population
Right.
here in Southern California, and specifically here in Orange County, and yet not have a true understanding of what goes on within the community, and not have a true understanding of what goes on within the minority community, and what is the mindset, the power, the opportunity, the challenges of the minority community in the business community.
Right.
So we want to be able to always, take that to heart, live it, breathe it, and make sure that we've got that thought process and understanding all the way from the top of the organization in the boardroom, all the way through the entire bank.
Yeah, I know that, we just had the passing of Colin Powell, and he always used to tout leadership at all levels, right? So it's not just the CEO level, you need it, all the way down your chain. And that was something to aspire to, whether you're a bank or whether you're an organization like ours. And you mentioned entrepreneurial. We try to be very entrepreneurial ourselves, right? You can run things very bureaucratically. Banking can be very bureaucratic. Chambers and an SBDC or SBA can be bureaucratic, but we've chosen to be entrepreneurial too, because you're right. That's the kind of the market that we serve. That's the market you're aspiring to serve. And that's awesome. So you mentioned like footprint. You used to have you're going to serve Orange County, LA, Inland Empire, Southern California, basically.
Right.
What's your future vision for the growth of Genesis Bank?
Well, I think we're going to just keep going deeper and deeper into those markets. Those 4 counties comprise the second largest demographic in the US, behind that whole Northeast New York tri-state area.
Right.
And with Opus, I think we spread ourselves a little bit thin, with the previous bank. We had 50 locations from San Diego to Seattle. And yet Orange County, LA County, our backyard, looking back, I don't think we penetrated that market and had as big of an impact as I really wish we had. And today, this is exactly where we're focused. And I've told everyone around here, if I start talking about, if I have aspirations to go into other markets across the country or further up and down the West Coast, shoot me. I don't want to do that again.
Right.
And it's not necessary.
Right.
There is a deep, very strong need here in these Southern California markets, and specifically Orange County, LA County, and to miss the opportunity and to have a misguided vision where we start spreading ourselves thin means that in order to effectuate it, we'd have to hire a lot more people. We'd have to have more physical location. And where things have gone from a technology standpoint, and COVID really accelerated the transition, one doesn't need branches anymore.
Right.
It's now, everybody over the last year and a half, even the absolute elders in our community, learned how to use mobile and online to be able to pay their bills, transfer money, check their balances, wire funds. And you don't read, when you read about all the carnage that COVID left behind, what you don't read about is elders bankrupting themselves, or elders not being able to pay their bills, or not being able to function because they couldn't walk into a branch. Everybody transitioned. Our client base completely transitioned. The banking system, as leaders of the community, as leaders of the US economy, we must transition. And CEOs, bank CEOs and chairs of the board, et cetera, must step up and set that example and lead and really be forward thinking. So we have bankers here in Southern California, really great bankers, and we support them with technology. So where are we going? We're just going to keep going a lot deeper. We're going to be very scalable, and we're going to utilize that technology with our clients and provide, great ideas, great solutions, true ideation, real brain power, not just banking products, services, and solutions, but the brain power that's necessary, supported by technology.
Oh, that's great. Well, you actually answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you what lessons you've learned from your previous banking experience. You obviously answered one of those. Are there any other lessons that you've learned too along the way that you're going to keep in mind as you build out Genesis?
Yeah, interestingly, the viewership today, the participants today, many of them are entrepreneurs that own businesses.
Right.
And they're trying to figure out, how do they navigate, how do they expand, how do they grow, how do they deal with supply chain issues, and you look out in the ocean and you now see all the delays impacting their businesses as a result of all the cargo ships that can't get emptied, and employees are very difficult to get a hold of today because some want to work from home, some aren't coming back to work, some are now transitioning into other industries for different compensation and different benefits. I think that as we evaluate what we did in the past versus what we're doing now, some of my rules are, capitalize as much of the company's expansion ourselves. When we raise capital to be able to expand the company, make sure it's with capital that we truly understand, that is really strategically aligned with what we're doing,
Right.
that understands where we're going and shares that vision, that truly wants to partner with us. But we're not going to let that capital be in the boardroom. Right? We're not going to let that, if there's private equity, it's going to be more of that private partnership, passive equity, not equity that feels like it must be in the boardroom micromanaging the business. So as your membership is thinking about how do they expand, and they're thinking about what kind of capital needs they may have, you want to make sure that you're really keeping control of your company, and you're not giving up control of your company and ending up with those conflicts that can exist. Also, we're extremely mindful of the need for use of technology, entrepreneurial culture within the organization, and break down silos and break down bureaucracy all the time. As Opus, the previous bank, became larger, the cultural divides that existed in the company were really challenging.
Right.
If I flew up to Seattle, where we had a couple of hundred team members, bankers, it was almost like a different company. If I went from the top floor of our building headquarters to the one floor below us that had an open staircase connecting, it was almost like entering a different company when we went down just one floor.
Right.
So as companies grow and expand, having the culture, really be cohesive through the organization and consistent through the organization, I think is tremendously important. Fortunately, here at Genesis, we're all on one floor. And we don't have, back at Opus, we had 800 people. I don't want 800 people ever again. Here we have about 35. Maybe we'll end up at 50. But very scalable, one organization, very streamlined. And our clients, I think, are really enjoying a true entrepreneurial, everybody rowing with one oar together in one direction, with a great sense of urgency to help our clients get business done. Whereas back at Opus, as much as we tried to do that, we were fighting the sheer numbers, and mass of the organization and physical footprint distribution across the whole West Coast.
Yeah.
So that never again.
Well, culture within banks is very difficult sometimes. That's obvious, especially some of the bigger banks that I worked for and such, and different acquisitions and things like that. You mentioned technology, and it's become bigger and bigger, financial technology, fintech. How important is that to what you're trying to build out?
It's incredibly important. The fintech world as an unregulated world, a world operating outside of, you'll remember, compliance and
Right.
BSA
Yeah.
and regulators. You end up having, we around here kind of jokingly nickname them. We have the counters, and then we have the checkers checking the counters, and then we have the checkers checking the checkers.
Right.
And that creates, a real bureaucracy sometimes that can exist inside of an organization. Certainly a lot of overhead. And the fintech world doesn't have that. They're able to be extraordinarily nimble. They're able to create things, ideas, solutions, and then go to market with them. And they have the ability to eat the lunch of the banking system.
Yeah.
So we must be very thoughtful that way. We must be very in tune with our clients to figure out where the pain points are, and then be able to develop solutions for them from a technology solution standpoint. So we must be able to operate as a regulated, insured banking system while also being extremely forward thinking, and then have the capital to be able to commit to generating solutions that are very mindful of where the world is today and where it's going, including in the digital social world, including in the payments world, and reporting world.
Yeah, I mean, financial technology is important, but how important is the employee? Because obviously the employee is the banker is the one that's first in line with the customer, with the consumer, with the small business owner, the day-to-day. How important is finding the right people for what you've been doing here?
So I learned when I was a young investment banker back in New York, that your real talent, your real franchise value goes up and down the elevator every day. And your talent base, can make the difference between, being excellent and being mediocre. And we intentionally, in launching Genesis, we started out with the key team, and only the key team here at Genesis. And we also often, I say that it's gonna be very difficult for someone to get a job at Genesis.
Yeah.
That we're not going, and there are a lot of people from our past that are reaching out to us, and they want to be here with us and be a part of building the company. And there are very few that are going to be able to meet the criteria, that are going to be able to achieve above the bar, and deliver, therefore, an institution, a bank, to our clients that's of the caliber that our clients demand of us. And we've been able to find that talent. And I think we have exceptional people here, far superior to the talent that we were deluded by back at Opus.
Yeah.
And I think that enables us to, to really bring to our clients the high quality brain power that they need. And I think it really does come down to brain power. And I think that makes the difference between one bank and another. Most banks are talking about, they bring SBA loans to their client, or they bring, deposit products to their client, or they bring a rate to the client that the client gets excited about. I like to think that we lead with ideas. We lead with solutions. We lead with brain power, and that takes a certain type of person who embraces that way of being, that way of functioning, that way of banking our clients.
Right.
And it also takes a certain person who really cares passionately, innately within them, about the needs of the client and the vision of the client. Most of my meetings with clients start with, the client will often say, we need a loan, we want it to be around this rate. And I immediately say, stop. I want to understand, how you started your business, why you started your business, what you want to do with your business, where you want to go with it. What's your vision? Yeah. I want to hear that first, because then that's going to trigger me to start thinking about, how can I navigate, how can I be of benefit to that client, that business owner, that entrepreneur. Any monkey can bring a rate.
Right.
Anybody can quote a loan amount. Right? But ideas, I think that's where it's really at. And that can be then supported by technology, but you got to have great talent to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, when I was a banker, same thing. A lot of people just pushing rate or pushing product, and you really need to find out what your customer needs, right? We try to do the same thing at the chamber and the SBDC, because the more we understand about our customer, the better job we can do, right? We want to push just rate and stuff. What's driving their business? What's their future vision for it? And, you mentioned New York and you were a young investment banker. We're at a fireside chat, even though we don't have a fire here. We apologize. We're in Southern California, but let me find out a little bit more about you, like your background and you personally.
So I'm a New Yorker by background, born and raised in New York. I valued. I grew up in the suburbs and grew up mowing the lawn, raking the leaves, shoveling the snow, and trying to earn a few dollars in order to, as a kid, I learned very quickly the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
And saving and I think I was raised pretty well as a kid. Then summer internships were always very important to me. And having the opportunity as I kind of moved up through my career, or aspired to have a career,
Yeah.
That exposure to what became my Wall Street experience was critically important. Somebody happened to open the door for me, give me an opportunity to expose me to that New York investment banking world, but it was up to me to hang. Nobody was going to do me any favor from that point forward. And I fought and clawed my way, to go from being a young bond salesman to then becoming an investment banker that restructured bank balance sheets, troubled institutions, and spent a lot of years on the 104th floor of Two World Trade, and was a partner in an investment banking firm that was a spin out of the financial services group at Bear Stearns, and became a firm called Sandler O'Neill. And I was always one of the top revenue producers in the firm, and flying all over the place, and working with banks that were dealing with the problems of a given economic cycle. And at the age of 32, I retired from the firm as a partner of the firm, moved to California, married my college sweetheart from 100 years ago, and live in Laguna Beach, and raised two daughters in Laguna Beach who have become very strong and powerful young women in their careers. And one of my daughters lives in Los Angeles, and my oldest daughter works at Netflix.
Oh, okay.
And my youngest daughter works in New York, and in the whole digital social activation world. And then my wife puts up with me and tolerates me, my wife of 26 years. And I have out here in California started a few banks, acquired a lot of banks, run banks, raised capital for those banks, infused my own capital in them, and then always taken those banks public, and eventually those banks were acquired as they grew, but they were all ideas from a piece of paper. Just an idea, a dream, a vision that I had, much like our clients, much like all of your members of the chamber who have a vision, an idea, a passion for something they want to build.
Sure.
So I've been very fortunate in my career. I like to think that people make their own luck, and I've been very fortunate in that the community and overall, as well as the business community in California and on the West Coast, has embraced me, has enabled. A bank is a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
A bank can't be successful unless the community embraces the bank and enables the bank to do business with the business community. And I've been very fortunate in that the business community has always embraced every institution that I've started, and I'm overwhelmed with surprise and joy by the way that we're being pulled in and embraced and held to a very high standard, here at Genesis. And when I say that, it's because I had an idea that there was, timing wise, a very significant demand for what we're doing now. And then when we made the election to become an MDI, I knew that there was a huge need in the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the African American community here in Southern California. what I underestimated was how large that demand was. And we're already, we're funding loans and bringing in deposits months earlier than we anticipated. And we only opened the bank 3 months ago. So in the second month, we're already funding loans and bringing in deposits and bringing in clients. And then we're now doing things that are way above our weight class. We're punching above our weight class. Yeah. And we're getting opportunities to do things that this little bank should not be getting looks at. And I mean, an example is we're doing a 24 property, over $100 million refinance portfolio for one of our large multifamily clients. We at this little bank should not be getting that opportunity in our third month to do something like that. And we're excelling at it. Everyone around here passionately gets themselves into it. So career-wise, life-wise, I look back and I feel extraordinarily committed through how blessed I am that things have played out the way they have in my career to give back to community, time and time and time again. And that goes to every one of our banks has had a foundation where we give grants back to those doing good in our communities. Yeah. To those organizations at the ground, at the grassroots level, doing good. We've always had internship programs where, for me, I view it as somebody gave me that opportunity when I was a young kid. We want to give that opportunity back. And we've always done that with our banks. Yeah. And then our partnership that we have also involves mentoring businesses, advising businesses on how to expand and grow, and financial literacy education, and things that are very, very important to our minority business owners, here in Southern California, in Orange County.
Well, you mentioned the Asian community, the Black community, Hispanic community. You have created partnerships with the Asian and Black chambers, as well as the Orange County Hispanic Chamber, yes. Which we appreciate that partnership. Why is that important to you? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's it goes back to that commitment and passion. We want to be able to connect with, access, and bring to our minority communities, and the power of your distribution with the Hispanic Chamber is very significant and very meaningful. And it's very important to the business owners, the entrepreneurs here in Orange County, that the Chamber brings, again, the brain power, the connectivity, the vendor connection, et cetera, into almost like a funnel that enables a vetting process and connectivity to occur. Yeah. And so our partnership with you, I think, is a very symbiotic two-way street that's very important, I think, for this to really work and to really make a difference and have an impact. And the stronger we enable business to be, what's always been very upsetting to me, and it's something I learned very quickly when I moved from New York to California, is that Southern California is so real estate centric. Yeah. That every single time a real estate cycle hits here in Southern California, it brings down business with it. It isn't just the real estate people that feel it on the chin. That economic pain, yeah, that carnage that's created, slips on over into the normal, the regular mainstream business community. And I've had a passion, and our banks have had a passion, all our bankers have had a passion to do everything we can to strengthen the depth and breadth and capability of the business community, so that maybe inevitably when the next real estate cycle hits, that businesses don't go under at the same time.
And it will hit.
It will.
It always does.
It's a question of, every day that goes by, we're closer and closer to that day coming.
Right. That's right. That's right. Edna, how much time do we still have here before we ask for some questions?
Another 15 minutes.
Oh, we do. Good. So do we have any questions out there?
No, we just have a comment from Ed Hart saying he loves both of you.
Ed Hart, Ed's a great.
Ed's a good person.
Very good guy. Good to see Ed out there. Thanks for listening, Ed. We appreciate you and your partnership and what you do at Cal State Fullerton in the community, and really watching out for small business. Small business represents like 90% of the job growth, right? Usually everybody thinks Fortune 500 and even Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is actually very small when it comes to an employment base, right? There's just what 70 to 100,000 people up there working, getting paid very well, but it's not big. It's not as scalable as people think. And part of that's because of technology. And small business is what really drives employees, drives employment, drives the economy, especially the American economy. So, what further thing can you suggest to entrepreneurs? You talked about entrepreneurs that they can do from your banking perspective to be better at what they do as an entrepreneur, as a business owner.
I think that one, and Ed, we know you're there. We're going to come back to you in one sec. And I think what Ed does is very, very important in this community.
Absolutely.
And it's, that family-owned business center that he has there. When you think about what they do, they educate. And I think that's very important for small business, because small business tends to lack the sophistication and access to sophisticated sources of capital, sophisticated ideas. But small business and typical business in our towns, our cities, our counties is critically important. And I would say more important than Silicon Valley and technology. As much as technology advancements are critically important, small business enables our economy to function. Yeah. It is the real pillar of our economy. And I think that the access to brain power and education and mentoring and idea generation is critically important for small business. So small business needs to reach out and grasp that anywhere they can. Right. I think that having access to the type of capital that makes sense to enable the growth of that business is critically important. I think that having really good, solid financial reporting that enable, accounting that enables them to be bankable is critically important. I think a lot of small businesses are wonderful businesses, but they don't operate in a manner that would enable the banking system to be able to pull them in and enable that business to be a part of the banking system, right? And have access to the type of financing that maybe would enable that business to really grow and expand. And then I think that our communities are too small for everyone to do it by themselves. I think it's really important, the same way we have the partnership around, we'll call it vendor matchmaking. Yeah. I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely.
That a lot of businesses, the minute we launched Genesis, it creates a new economic ecosystem that wraps itself around the bank, meaning we have vendors, suppliers, professionals who suddenly we do business with because we exist. And I think it's critically important that our small businesses know where to find, those service providers, the vendors, the professionals, and that the recommendations, the referrals are made that get them to the best quality that they can afford, because that enables them to perform at a certain level as well.
That's right.
And then finding ways to do business with one another. I love nothing more. We had our grand opening and we invited 350 people from within the business and governmental municipal community into our den. Yeah. Right. And what I loved even more than meeting everybody that I met that night, I loved watching everybody figuring out how to do business with one another and networking with one another, because maybe they met their next client. So we want to do a lot of stuff like that and invite in our business community and enable them to leverage off of one another. And I think that that's critically important in smaller communities. Even though Orange County may be the 6th largest county in the US, it certainly is not the 6th largest business hub in the US.
That's right.
And I think there's an opportunity for you, me, Ed, Mitch, Tam, all of us to enable that growth to occur just simply by getting everybody together that we know.
Well, that's one of our pillars, economic development. So, and that's what we do through the Small Business Development Center. And you mentioned, some people aren't as sophisticated when they're small businesses. we do that. We provide that at no cost. We try to help people get to that level to become bankable. And that was when I was a banker, that was one of the fun things to do, was just to help people get to the next level, find funding. If the funding wasn't from me, maybe it was from somebody else, or was referring them to the SBDC or the SBA, and just being part of that ecosystem like you talked about. That's just vitally important. And what can we do as leaders in Orange County to facilitate that, right? Being a banker, and you talked about vendor, we do a program called a procurement program, trying to match our smaller businesses with our larger businesses. Maybe there's an opportunity for one of our businesses to do business with Disney, or to do business with Southern California Edison. We want to help facilitate that and help those businesses grow. So we appreciate you thinking that way too. I mean, I think
we did that immediately.
Yeah.
Companies have a tendency to fall back on what they know or what they did before.
Right.
And for supplies, we initially, we discovered we were buying our initial supplies from Staples.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
Right? And then we ended up going into our connectivity within the diversity network, and we ended up, we're now doing our supply procurement through a minority-owned business that is much better than working with Staples.
Yeah.
And we'd rather impact that way, rather than hypocritically say that we're a minority depository institution focused on the minority business community, and then we don't put our money where our mouth is, and we buy from Staples.
Right.
That'd be ridiculous.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's what we hope most of our members do, most of our partners do, is think a little bit about, where they can do their spend. What's their next spend going to be? Is there an opportunity for one of our members to do business with you or somebody else? So I love that train of thought, and that commitment is awesome. So thank you for doing that. Edna, do we have anyone else besides Ed on the line?
Let me check.
And how much time do we have left?
We still have 17 minutes.
Okay.
And I see in the
Sophie
chat,
Charges mentioned that she's very appreciative learning more about Genesis Bank through Mr. Gordon, and to Ruben Franco from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, can you repeat that again, Edna? I'm sorry.
Sylvia Echar just responded saying she's very appreciative learning more about Genesis Bank through Mr. Gordon and from Ruben Franco.
Well, that's great. Sylvia is one of our board members, and she runs a magazine here called Para Todos. It's a Hispanic language magazine. They do a great job. They've been around for over 25 years.
That's terrific.
But that's a female entrepreneur that's just been succeeding and doing a great job of being out there in the community as well. So we appreciate Sylvia's leadership as a board member, and then what she does in the community of getting the news out to the Spanish language participants here in the county. So that's always very cool. So we mentioned Ed Hart, and you talked about family-owned businesses, and I've been to many of Ed's events where he does highlight family-owned businesses and the struggles that they have. Right, you're right. They don't have the resources that a lot of bigger organizations do, and they, they're day to day, and they're 24/7, and trying to make payroll is a little bit different sometimes. And sometimes you talk about culture. Sometimes there's a family dynamic,
Yes.
right, within, which makes it challenging. Sometimes I'll just say the word challenging. Sometimes it's a little bit more than challenging, but there's television shows out there that highlight the bigger challenges. What has been like one of your biggest challenges through your career?
I think that well, it's weird. I said that I've had a really I've been very fortunate in the way that my career has gone. I think one of my biggest challenges was probably at the time that that I thought the opportunity was so large that I brought in probably too much capital, and that capital ended up having representation in the boardroom, and I found myself managing the boardroom more than I was managing the growth of the business. And that was probably one of my challenges. And I think that's good advice I could give to, to all of our businesses in the community, because bigger isn't always better. Sometimes and that goes back to, I don't want to be on the whole West Coast again.
Right.
And I don't want to have 800 employees again. But some people think that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and that growing a much bigger business is going to make things so much easier. Sometimes it makes your life a lot more complicated. And I think the biggest challenge I have had has been, and it's taking me until I'm now 59 years old, and I probably started finding it at about 58, which was, and you'll hear this a lot, and all of us probably have this, which is really finding the proper balance, of everything. And I've gotten it wrong so many times in my career where my life really flip-flopped. And I'll say that when I was a young investment banker, when I retired at 32, that decision was really driven by my life got a little out of control. So I had, and it may seem to some to be such an incredible life at the time. I was living on Park Avenue in New York City. A driver would take me up and down the FDR Drive to the World Trade Center to the 104th floor. And I was out in dinners every night. I was on airplanes 3 days a week. And some people may say, wow, that's the New York life. That's so cool. It sucked. It was horrible. I was living in hotels. I was rarely home, and I'm a homebody, right? And I was up until 1, 2 in the morning, and then waking up at 6 in the morning to go to the office, and things got a little out of whack in terms of that personal versus work and achievement balance. And over the years, I've gotten it more and more right. And my mentor in life, who died on 9/11, Herman Sandler, he used to say it about me, about Stephen Gordon. Every time he gets his life going really well, he shakes it up and screws it up a little bit, right? And I am so committed to protecting that balance that I will never mess that up again. And now I've got, my wife is on me about it. My whole family is on me about it. And our daughters, who live on opposite sides of the country, they're both on me about it to make sure I get it right. And I think that's really important to everybody, because your career can sometimes consume you. And when you're talking about a family-owned business, which Genesis is not, but I can imagine when it's a family-owned business and family-run business, you take it home with you.
That's right.
Business sometimes ends up also being at the dinner table, and it ends up being discussion over the weekend. And and I can't imagine, like, what if one of my family members was underperforming? Like, here, if you've got someone underperforming, you let them go. I mean, do you let your kid go? Right. I mean, this is, so I think balance and priorities, and sometimes putting a wall around you a little bit, is important. I've not gotten that right often.
Well, I think that's funny the way you phrase that. It only took you 58 years to learn that.
Well, my grandmother lived to 103. So
okay,
I think I've got maybe another 40, 50 years.
There you go.
Me. So hopefully I can get it right through the rest of the duration.
Well, I think that's great. I think, I learn something every day, and a lot of times it's from my kids and my wife too, as well. And the people that I get to break bread with in the community and stuff. There's always something new to learn. And
how old are your kids?
My daughter is 24. She's in New York, went to NYU, working for the Department of Justice. Supposed to be in DC eventually, but been working in New York because of COVID. And my son is 20, going to school at Saddleback, and wants to be a filmmaker.
So I'll tell you something. I learn so much from this generation. My daughters are 25 and 29, and there is a tremendous amount that I take from them. And I'm constantly amazed by what goes on in their brain and how they operate and how they think. And I'm constantly trying to figure out how to apply that to the world in which I'm operating in. Right? Because that generation functions so much differently than we grew up functioning.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And they grew up with technology and a digital world being second nature to them. They know no other way. And we olders, we old folk are
Yeah.
trying to keep up.
That's right.
And it must become second nature for all of us, because our clients demand that too. Right?
They do.
Our relationships all demand it. It's how they all function. So our kids are superstars from that standpoint.
I agree.
And we're kind of like the BlackBerry generation.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. I learn something from them every day. I have Edna on the phone, who's the same age as my daughter, and she's our admin and does a great job. And Josiah, and they keep me going, because otherwise I couldn't get to where I need to be every day and do what I need to do every day and be able to do this type of things with you and other great partners and stuff like that. So you're right. They just bring a different perspective. So I'm learning from them. And so sometimes it's called reverse mentorship, right? You want to mentor them, but they're mentoring you a lot of times. So
yeah, I think that and this goes to all of our business owners. We need to be actively forensically inquisitive.
Yeah.
Because there is so much access to information around us, and it could be, who knows, it could be, the expert might be in New Zealand, right? But you've got access to that at your fingertips. And there is so much to learn that we can apply to our everyday, and in growing businesses, in each and everybody's sector and niche. We've got specialists all around the world that are now part of our think tank, right? On our iPhones that we can access just by Googling, right? And we have to want to, while still, I'm going in full circle, but while still maintaining balance in life.
Right.
Right.
That's right. And you and I used to have to look up, in the Encyclopedia of Things if we wanted to learn something. We didn't have,
was it, the Dewey Decimal System or something like that?
Yeah, that's at the library, right?
Yeah, you had to go to the library to actually do your research, only during hours when they were open.
Yeah.
Right. And the encyclopedia was updated and mailed to us at home once a year, once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's not the world we're in now. It's instantaneous. The information is live. It's there. And if I was starting a business, running a business, I would want to know everything research-wise, knowledge-wise, data-wise available to me, because it's going to enable me to be, that on the cutting edge, bleeding edge of where I could go with my business.
Yeah.
I'll give you an interesting example. A company that we all know, Porto's.
Sure.
Porto's Bakery.
Betty Porto's, great family.
Largest Hispanic,
That's right.
Cuban-owned bakery in the entire country, like 200 million of sales,
Mhm.
selling little $1.50 puff pastries.
Yep.
During COVID, they had challenges, right? But they pivoted very quickly and went to an online capability, where they were shipping, uncooked product that all you had to do was throw into your oven.
Yeah.
And you were able to have a Porto's experience, right? That's the world we're operating in now. And some of the world is not going to go back to a physical presence. And everybody's pivoting and determining, what is the workplace going to be like? Are we going to have a hybrid model? Are we going to have everybody working from home, or some people are going to be at home and some in the workplace? Is it going to be 100% workplace? And what is the delivery mechanism, the distribution channel? Is it now going to only be online? Is it going to be online and physical? We all need to be really thinking about all
A
this.
lot of people had to pivot, as well as us and others, on March, 2020. And how do we get the resources out to our members and our clients and our community? How did they do the PPP and the EIDL, like you talked about? And now, what do they do as we get out of that? And there's no more EIDL, there's no more PPP. What kind of financing can they get?
Right.
And that's kind of the question and the struggle, is that where do I go next now? How do I get back to whole and then beyond whole? How do I go to the next level? And that's kind of going to be the challenging over the next year, 2, 3, 5, even 5 years here.
Well, that says also that, and every time you go through one of these crisis type of moments,
Yeah.
in the history of this country, people need to become smarter and more sophisticated around access to capital.
Yeah.
They need to become smarter and more sophisticated around, potential consolidations. Maybe they should be buying their competitor. Maybe they need that scale in order to compete. Maybe their competitor, who always was their competitor, is now struggling, and they didn't pivot the way that you pivoted, right?
Yeah.
And that may be an opportunity for that business to expand, partner, and become a larger, more efficient, more scalable organization.
Yeah.
And those are conversations that maybe businesses weren't having 2 years ago. Now maybe they need to be thinking about it.
Yeah. I've always thought of challenges, not necessarily as challenges, but as
It
opportunities,
is
like
an
you said,
opportunity.
right? So even with things declining, okay, what is the opportunity here? And there always is and stuff. You mentioned Pardo's great family-owned business. I got to go to the grand opening here in Buena Park. They're in Orange County. God bless Betty Pardo and the family for doing that, because we're big consumers of them. And Andy Garcia, the actor, was there. He's a close family friend. They helped feed him while he was a struggling actor. And he said, he got up and said some nice words and said, well, I'm related by digestion, because they helped him throughout his younger years and got him to where he is today as a very famous actor. But, you love seeing those stories of a family-owned business just getting to the level they have. And,
Yep.
and you're right. I think those opportunities are out there.
They are.
Despite some of the challenges that are there.
There are a lot of phenomenal companies that are now facing decisions.
Yeah.
And that decision tree, may include, traditional decisions, traditional opportunities that they have always executed on, and just doing more of it or less of it. But I think that people need to think a little bit differently now, and look at what the landscape really is around their competition, and determine where they go next coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to be living with some form of COVID, forever. Who knows? But the world has changed in this last year and a half, and it's not going back to what it was, in February of 2020.
Right.
March 2020 changed everything, and I think that has created a lot of opportunity. Who knows? I mean, without COVID, maybe our business plan would have included a lot of branches again.
Yeah.
But
Brick and mortar.
But COVID created so much change that is not going to be returned to, that we needed to think differently as well.
Yeah.
So I think we bring that experience, we bring that entrepreneurial type of thinking, and that level of ideation, I think, to collect our collective universe and the impact that we can have.
Well, that's great. Well, we appreciate our time with you here today. And
thank you. I really appreciate having
it's been
this time shared together.
An awesome
We
experience.
do have one last question. I'm so sorry.
No
This
problem.
is for Stephen. They're asking when internships will be available and why it's so important to him.
Okay, so internships are generally summer internships, and work around the college and university timelines. As far as when session is out versus when it begins again in the fall, and I have generally found those who are on top of their careers and really trying to make something happen in their future are generally extraordinarily proactive about reaching out for internship opportunities. And the competition for that, when I say that, in my past companies, by the time we got to January of that upcoming year, we generally had somewhere around 500 applicants for what became 15 internship positions. So what I can recommend is that, if people are seeking an internship, that they get on top of that during this month, November and December, because you're also competing against the rest of the kids across the country who are also working on internships. And we companies are generally trying to get that really finished up by let's say February, and make our commitments to who we're going to be hiring. And those kids want to know, before school is done in May, June, exactly who they're going to be working for, where they're going to be. They're making their commitments as well. So we try to be very proactive and responsive around that. So this upcoming summer, absolutely, we intend on having interns, and those who are interested should absolutely reach out to me and figure out how to get across to me their emails. I'll make it easy. I think my email is sgordon@mygenesisbank.com. Is that right? I think. Okay. And I'm asking because I'm transitioning from and I'm not doing a good job of it, from my personal email to my Genesis
sure.
email, being that we're only a couple of months old.
Yeah.
But please reach out and plan on sending to me most recent bio and resume, and let me know why it is that you want why you would want an internship opportunity at Genesis Bank. So that's upcoming.
Great question, and great advice. Just if you're looking for any internship, whether it's Genesis or others, this is the time period to start finding out about it. So,
and you can also spread the word that an internship at Genesis is generally unique and uniquely different than at other companies. It's a real hands-on, in the weeds type of internship. It's not where somebody's filing or alphabetizing or getting coffee. We've had interns working on M&A transactions where we were working on another bank. We've had them working on, in our finance and accounting division, helping with, the closing of the month and the quarter financials.
Right.
We've had them working, assisting our bankers, our lenders, and learning how to spread financials of a client. We've had them going out to meetings and be in executive committee meetings and senior management committee meetings, and working on projects where they're actually making presentations to the executive team. So it's real serious. It's a real learning experience in many, many different ways, not just around, the finance and accounting and banking skills, but also the skills that you need to be able to, vocalize an idea, to be able to communicate in the workplace. These are all incredibly important skills that actually still matter today, even though everybody's communicating by text and email and on Zoom. You actually got to be able to communicate in a business environment and articulate ideas effectively.
it still makes a difference. Absolutely. That's great advice.
God forbid a kid looks you in the eyes, right?
Yeah.
When talking.
It calls you on the phone.
Yeah.
Instead of text you. But hey, thank you so much for doing this today. Thank you for the partnership.
It's my honor.
We appreciate your leadership and what you're doing for us and the community at large. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you all for being on the call and the Zoom call. And if you have any questions for Steve or I, reach out and let us know. But we're here to kind of help, and we really appreciate you guys being on today.
Thank you all for having me. I'm very accessible. Feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day, everybody.